Hello, explorers. For those of you who are new, welcome. For those of you who are not new, I thank you for tuning into this conversation. I hope that you are exploring new things, new places near and afar, as well as exploring new ways of relating to others. We're going to have a discussion. I have a panel of extraordinary women with me today. And so we're going to discuss divorce. Is it a stigma or is it a shame that's associated with being divorced in the Black working community? Let me do a quick introduction. To my left, I have Lady Z. She is a mother, she's a author, she's a social worker, and she's a God-fearing woman. To my right, I have Miss Stephanie. Miss Stephanie is a mother. She's an instructor, cosmetology instructor. She's a phenomenal hairstylist and a colorist. She is a woman of many skills. She's a singer, you name it, she can pretty much do it. Miss Tia to the bottom left, she is a mother. Miss Tia is an entrepreneur. She has like, is it two or three businesses that I know of? And it's probably more by now. She's also a world traveler. She's been to a lot of different countries. So that's my travel buddy. In the center, I have a mother. I have a business owner as well. So again, I said this is a panel of extraordinary women who are making moves. Miss Monica, you name it, she can do it. She's been to the continent. You know, I talk about Africa on this channel a lot. And then I have Miss Des. Miss Des is also a mother, so I'm the only one who have not given birth on this platform today. So Miss Des is a mother. She's a teacher. She's the best crochet. And Tia hair is an example of the crochet, so she's our stylist as well. So we want to jump right in. And the very first, let me say thank you, ladies, for giving me your time and sharing your perspective with us. I want to put a disclaimer in first, and that disclaimer is in no way are we against marriage. This is just a conversation because each of us have been divorced at one point in our lives, right? So it's just our hope that you can learn something from us. We can share with you our experience and talk about a topic based on questions that I've been asked recently, right? So we're all about marriage, each of us. So I just want to put it out there first. Have any of you given up on marriage? Nope, not a single one of us have. Just because we've been divorced and many of us are remarried or engaged now, are waiting until God sends us our next best mate. So let's just get started. Do you think, the first question is, there is a stigma or shame associated with being divorced as a Black working mother and woman?
I guess I will go first. I can actually say from personal experience, there is some type of stigma associated with being a Black woman that is divorced. And most of that stigma is associated with us not having the best examples of what a real marriage is supposed to look like. So the stigma that comes along with being divorced, I would say is a sense of shame. There is a sense of what did I do? Or am I the reason that this didn't work out? Or did I not fight hard enough for my marriage to work? What could I have done differently for this not to happen? So for me, when I was initially divorced in my first marriage, I know you and Lady Z probably know that I got married very young. I was 17. So me watching my parents, it wasn't the grandest example, but that was the example that I had of what a marriage looked like for me. So there is a sense of a stigma of shame that comes along with being a divorced African-American woman, because we're mostly stigmatized as being strong or too strong, in a sense of where it could be intimidating for a male to be able to come into your life. So that's kind of a little bit of my perspective of the stigma of being a divorced Black woman. And for me, it's 2 times. So one of the things that I've learned in being a 2-time divorcee is just waiting on God to send that right one, so that I don't continue to make not bad choices, but wrong decisions.
So I definitely agree with Monica that there is definitely a stigma, and not only as a Black woman, but as a Black Christian woman. Because, of course, when you look at the whole aspect of what your faith is, you're supposed to hang in there. There's only one reason technically for divorce. And so, that could have been the reason, could not have been the reason. And so when you tell people or they find out that you're divorced, oh, what happened? Oh, well, are you okay? Like, I'm fine. Like, or they'll say, I'm sorry to hear that. Don't be sorry. Like, I'm good. So the stigma within the church community, I think if more is done on the front end regarding premarital counseling, and I mean like in depth, not just we're gonna meet 4 times and I'm gonna marry you. I mean like some 6 months to a year premarital counseling, if not longer. And then even post-marriage, like after you're married for 6 weeks, I need you all to come back in and let's start some more counseling. Because you're talking about 2 people coming together, different families, different ideologies. Maybe they were married before, maybe you weren't, or vice versa. Maybe it's your first marriage together. But there is a whole lot when you bring 2 people together and talk about we're gonna be together forever. Mm-hmm. Like, it's a lot. Mm-hmm. So stigma, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And then for most Black women, we wait, because we're career focused. Usually we're focused on career and traveling, and we're usually sometimes 30-ish, if not older. I was mid-30s when I got married the first time. And so then it's that whole stigma, well, why weren't you married? What's wrong with you? Nothing. I'm good. Like, I'm enjoying my life right now. So stigma on both ends, child. Absolutely.
Thank you.
I would like to respond. The stigma, I believe when you get older and mature, about 2 years ago, I finished my associate's degree. After styling hair for so many years, it's always on my mind that I want to do more. And I realized that's for me. Like, I chase my own dreams and I don't compete with others. And that didn't come until later in life, because you tend to watch everybody around you and think that you have to achieve. But also with coming into myself, I was in an ethics class. The reason why I brought up that, I was in an ethics class and my professor said, okay, tear down everything that you have learned that somebody has taught you. Mm. And I was like, now here I am, probably the oldest, I'm sure I'm old enough to be everybody's mama in the class. But here I am, tear down everything that somebody else has taught me. And then they said, okay, tear down what your mama taught you. Tear down what your religion has taught you. And now I want you to think for yourself. That gave me chills. Mm-hmm. And it really changed my perspective on everything. So I went from thinking that, yes, it seems like we all have a few things in common, that a few of us have been married twice or a few times. I have it as well. So the first time I was married, I was only 25, and I stayed in it way too long because I was getting the advice of the elders. Mm-hmm. I was getting the advice of my friends. Mm-hmm. I was getting the advice of my clients, because I'm styling and doing hair and trying to hold back tears. And I even learned with that to just keep my mouth shut. I don't have to be so vocal. And the less you vocalize your pain to the world, the more you can hear from God. You can hear from the Holy Spirit speaking to you, instead of this person. And it just set up a lot of confusion. So a lot of people were saying, girl, at the church, you don't leave your husband, God will work it out. I'm like, but I'm hurting. And then the friend's like, girl, you stupid. Why would you deal with that? I'm stupid because I want to be with my husband. So, I mean, I'm sure we all probably have gotten those, like, just one too many of people telling us what we should or shouldn't do with our own lives. And it was just very confusing. So I feel like now, it's in your mind. What do you want for you? How does this make you feel? Does this connection, is it genuine? Is it loving? Is it kind? Is it the fruits of the spirit? How is he treating me? How am I treating him? Am I honest with myself? Am I really in love? Or do I really like this person? So when you think about a stigma, most of the time you got to tear down what people think and then start thinking for yourself. And life just is different. So when God blesses me with my Boaz, it's going to be different. Because I'll be thinking for myself and not thinking about what other people think is best for me. So the answer is yes. They give you a stigma, but I don't conform anymore.
Absolutely.
The world gives you a stigma, but I feel good about treating myself well. And that self-care starts with me loving me. And when you love yourself, you ain't finna deal with just any old body and put up with any old thing. I guess I answered the question.
No, you did. You did. It's so true. It's so true. Because, statistics shows, there was a report, and it was all from the U.S. Census, the 2020 census, that the average age of people going through a divorce for the first time is 30 years old. That's the average age for divorce. And I heard 3 people say kind of the same thing. The church really has not, let me say, in my experience, helped us to form healthy relationships. Did we really see an example, and Monica said it well, of healthy relationships? And I keep saying over and over, a relationship is about 2 people. Right? So even if one person has it, the other person has to be willing to put in the work as well, right? So a lot of times, you said something that I went through with my first divorce, is you hold on way too long. You hold on way too long. My divorce wasn't bad. He wasn't bad, but I stayed in for the sense of not wanting to feel shame from my church family. Really, it was just about church family. Because and disappointing my friends and my mother, didn't want to disappoint my family, didn't want to disappoint my friends. And at some point during that process is when I decided, like you, Stephanie, I'm living for me, and God ultimately is the final judge. If he's not disappointed with me, hey, everybody else, I love you guys, but I'm living for me and God now. I'm sorry. So I heard a couple of things. Sometimes we stay too long. Also, I've run into a lot of people who have really difficult divorces. And for me, I don't know what that feels like, because I had a healthy divorce. And what I mean by that is we are still friends. We can still talk. It's not a dislike. He and I to this day, we joke. So I want to know from you, is there a such thing as a healthy divorce? And what advice could you give a woman who, because everything doesn't have to be this big dramatic affair, and you can leave a divorce in peace. So is there anything that you could give or that you went through to make sure that you had a peaceful transition out of that marriage into? And it's not promoting divorce, but we have to realize that divorce it happens, right? So I want to equip people who are feeling like, or they know they shouldn't be in this marriage because it's maybe an abusive marriage, but they're staying. How do we equip you to say, listen, it's okay. Here's something you can learn from us. How do you make this a healthy process? Does anybody?
I think often, in order for you to have a healthy divorce, is to communicate what your desires are, stand your ground on what you're going to tolerate, and also do some give and take. Because sometimes it's the small things that people have a tendency to want to argue about. Me, I want to argue about the dog. The dog was my dog. I mean, it may sound so crazy, but people argue about the most simplest things. Mm-hmm. Only very few is it the children. Usually, a lot of people say, "Oh, girl, I'm going to take my kids," but you know what? He will probably give you the kids. But the dog, sometimes they get a little sentimental about the dog. But I think in speaking seriously about it, I think it's being diplomatic in your ideals of what is real. And sometimes we have this thought of grandeur. I'm going to get him. I'm going to get his retirement. I'm going to get this. We want so much. But then we also have to know what are we willing to give in return? Because when you get something, often it's going to cost you. Yeah. And peace of mind is what it's going to cost you. So I think just thinking about the peace of mind aspect of it, and also, I mean, when I got divorced, okay, I've been divorced 2 times. When I got divorced the first time, that was it was so peaceful. I mean, I was just like, it was like cruise control. I sent him his divorce through the mail. He called me on the phone and asked me which line to sign on. Is this really what I wanted? We could stay married forever, girl, because you still my road dog, no problem whatsoever. Second divorce, he was not as diplomatic, but what I did was I just kind of had to think of why I wanted the divorce. And it was about peace. That's my key word, like peace. So thinking of a give and take, not trying to think much larger than what you're willing to sacrifice. Just pretty much be diplomatic about it. And you know what? Sometimes we have to take ourselves out of the equation. Yeah. We have to just put aside all of our big egos and just say, if this is what I really want, these are the things that I'm going to have to sacrifice. These are the things that I'm willing to give, and these are the things that I really need to take with me to move on. So it's about peace, ladies. Mm-hmm. You just have to know that we wouldn't be getting a divorce if it was peaceful.
Right. Exactly. So at least make the ending and final process peaceful.
As peaceful as possible. It's not a pretty thing to happen. I know you all talked about stigma. It's, there's a stigma that comes with it. It's that thought of personal failure. It's that thought of what could I have done? But as my mother told me, when I thought about getting divorced the second time, she told me, she said, you have to know what is best for you, and are you going to be able to live with the results? Mm-hmm. But before you consider divorce, the first thing you need to do is to know that I have put everything I possibly could into this. And if you have exhausted every avenue that you, not for the other person, but for you, then you'll know that you're ready. Yeah. And then there's the peace. There comes this calm that comes across you. So you'll know.
I think that you said the most important thing is what I try to do is include them in the process of the divorce. I try to communicate, hey, you want to look at this together? You want to sit down and you want to talk about it? Here, can you sign? I try to make it that we were both, in the end, mutually agreeing to this, right? And I think if everybody's not reasonable like that, I was just blessed in that sense. But if you can, try to go walk through that process together, and that is what I would suggest to someone. Because I think it's a such thing as a healthy divorce.
that somebody, like you both said, somebody has to be the bigger person. And then we have, you, like you said too, you have to decide like, okay, I'm the bigger person now, but also dig deeper into why you're getting the divorce. And then I always think like this, even when it comes to friendships, or when I hear stuff on the news, hurt people hurt people.
Absolutely.
And who's gonna bow out gracefully and start asking for healing and forgiveness and start living life, with love, so that you could grant that person the same grace that God grants you. And so somebody has to move to the side, or if not, it's gonna be a constant battle and you're gonna forever be fighting. So I live by that now, like hurt people hurt people. And I don't wanna walk around hurt and bitter, because then what happens is you carry that baggage on to the next relationship, and even in your friendships, and even dealing with your children and whomever. So just somebody got to let it go. Like I bow out. I'm good. I just want to love, even if it's love from a distance. I may have been angry with you, but I'm still gonna love you. I'm still gonna ask God to help me forgive, and you forgive me, and we gonna move on. And that, like she said, like peace is the thing.
Absolutely.
There's definitely such thing as a healthy divorce. And I also think that when you think about divorce, it's a loss, just like when someone dies. Because when you get married, because you think it's gonna last forever. And so the divorce is the death of what you thought would be forever. And so you go through those stages of grief. There's denial and anger and bargaining, depression. Then at some point you're like, I accept this divorce, I am good. But you go through those stages, and that is the normal process. Just like when someone dies, we go through those stages. And so and I'm a career social worker, and there is still a stigma in our community about seeking counseling. If you need to go sit on the couch, it's okay. Because sometimes having that third party who's neutral, who don't know you or know about your life, you'll find out some things of, maybe your background or what you saw as, what was a healthy marriage. Like, oh, well, that really is not healthy. Who knew? You didn't. So sitting on the couch can be beneficial. So if you need to go sit on the couch and it's okay. So yes, it can be a healthy divorce, but recognizing within yourself that you're going to go through those stages of grief, and it is perfectly okay.
Yep. I joke. I always joke. I'm sorry, Monica. I joke all the time. Say I'm gonna check into a heartbreak hotel for 72 hours. After that, I'm coming out. I cannot stay in a heartbreak hotel for too long. That's just it. I'm sorry, Monica.
I absolutely agree with everything that's been said thus far, especially Lady Z, because with my first divorce, I did my best to try to make sure that it was a healthy divorce, but because of the circumstances for why I needed to divorce, made it extremely unhealthy. Because in my first marriage, I was married for 15 years and I had 5 kids in this marriage, which made it very difficult. And my children and I actually did seek counseling, in spite of what Christianity teaches us, the pastor, should be doing your counseling and everything, but it's really okay to go and talk to a therapist to get counseling, which is what we need in our community. More of encouragement to actually seek out those services. And divorce can end in a healthy manner, just depending on the circumstances. My second divorce, I would consider ending in a healthier manner, way better than my first divorce, because like you said yourself, Monica, including that other party in the divorce, talking it out, exhausting all avenues to see if it can be worked out. And what I learned to do, as Stephanie said, is to pull back, remove myself from the equation, because when you're going through something like that, you do have a lot of ears and a lot of comments about what people think you should do, versus being able to actually hear clearly from God. And with me being a pastor, that takes everything that I experienced to a whole nother level, because people are getting a chance to see the humanity side of what a pastor can go through. Just because, I'm in a position of leadership, I own, several businesses, I'm a mother, and, I appear to be this strong individual, and we break down too. So what I had to do in my second divorce was actually leave out of town, just on the humbug. Like, I have to leave. I don't want to hear what nobody else has to say about my situation. I need to go sit on the beach somewhere and listen to what God wants me to do in this situation. And to be able to come back with a clear mind, and to be able to make a clear and conscious decision on what I needed to do for myself, not what anybody else thought I should do, not what anybody else wanted me to do, but what Monica needed to do so that I can be a healthy individual and continue to be the best mother, pastor, counselor to the next person. Because if I'm not healthy, I'm not going to be healthy for anybody around me. And I noticed that, once I made the decision, hey, this marriage is not going to work, I've realized that all of my emotions were rubbing off on my employees. So if I'm experiencing something, it was like everybody else was experiencing that too. And that's what made me realize, hey, I need to make sure that I'm doing this for Monica, not for anybody else, and that I'm hearing clearly from God. And it doesn't mean that God loves me any less, and we have to come to grips with that, in Christianity, there are things in the Bible that tells us why God would permit or allow us to divorce. And unfortunately, that thing was what happened in both marriages. And it, like Lady Z said, it takes you back to, what did I see in my childhood that made me think that it was okay? And I was in my first marriage way too long, way longer than what I should have been. And we all experienced that because, we want our marriage to work. We want it to work. We don't get married to get divorced. We want that thing to work. And with, us being Christians and being children of God, we don't want that stigma that, God couldn't make that work. And a lot of times it's just a decision that we made, out of God's timing. So, that's one thing that I can definitely say is, I don't put the blame on nobody but myself for going out of God's timing. And we have to come to grips with that and forgive ourselves for making those choices that we make. And that's something that I had to do, and do some self-reflection. Hey, Monica, what happened in your life that caused you to hook up with another familiar spirit? Because that's basically what it is. I hooked up with another familiar spirit. And a lot of times, that familiar spirit starts in childhood. You hear the saying that you usually pick somebody similar to your mother or your father. So, in my picking, I picked somebody that resembled what I grew up with. And like I said, it wasn't the healthiest. And that's unfortunate because, we don't deal with those things in the church. We don't sit down and properly do premarital counseling with those that we are saying, I trust you to be my spiritual leader. We're ultimately, if I marry somebody, I'm responsible for that marriage. You know what I'm saying? And I'm responsible ultimately to God, because God is going to hold me accountable if that marriage doesn't work. So a lot of times as leaders in the church, we have to be cautious of making sure that we're making the right decision on whether or not we're going to marry an individual, because we're ultimately responsible if that thing doesn't work out. So I'm very cautious, now being a pastor, being in a position of leadership, on who I choose to do civil duties with, because I'm held accountable to God if that marriage doesn't work out. So we definitely need to have more of these conversations in the Black church, because there's not enough being said about marriage in church. There is not enough right marriages being displayed, even in Christianity. We see it all the time. We have pastors out here who got side chicks and extra kids. There's not enough being displayed on what a true godly marriage is supposed to look like. And it's unfortunate because a lot of times the people that's in the world, marriages last longer than people that are in the church. And it's not making sense. It's not adding up. And that's because we have this stigma of You know, you're supposed to stay married, together forever, till death do you part. I don't care if he beat you upside your head type stuff. And that needs to stop. It really needs to stop. So with that being said, you have to just be strong enough and make up in your mind that I have to do what's best for me. And I have to make sure that I end it healthy, even if the other party chooses not to end it healthy.
Monica, you just said a mouthful of, which I don't even know which point to even address. I can't.